Hello, everybody. Welcome back. It's fun to have you. Yeah, you're here. It's great. It is Tuesday. I don't know what I'm doing with this, but we're doing a session on horror game sound design. It's kind of spooky, isn't it? So yeah, welcome back. It's themed around the best holiday in the year, Halloween. And yeah, we're gonna get into effective techniques that are used to spook you and to help you as potential sound people um, make better sounds along the way. And just to start off, I'm gonna clear things up. You don't need to be making a horror game if you want like the influences to be present. Um, so a lot of filmmakers they start with horror. Sam Raimi, for example, he made Evil Dead on the Spider-Man trilogy, which may come up. Um, but that influence from working on horror does kind of seep into the rest of your work, or at least their work. So the influence from the genre can be felt in pretty much everything, and they don't even have to do anything or have anything to do with spookiness. And you'll kind of see what we're talking about as we get closer to the end, and you'll see how it can be applied more broadly. So, key example of this, the aforementioned Spider-Man trilogy. This is a real frame in Spider-Man 1. It's kind of spooky, but like it's a lighthearted, it's cheesy movie. It's great. It's a masterpiece almost. But this is a frame in the movie. And it's
Oh
not a
boy.
horror movie, and it's spooky. So you can have things that are spooky in non-spooky things. That's my TED talk. All right. So, bunch of spookums and good references. It's a long list. It's not centered properly. It's fine.
Thank
Yeah.
goodness.
uh yeah.
So this is a bunch of games that we kind of piled together that some of them are horror, some of them are not. Such as White Noise 2, very clearly a horror game. It's a lot like Dead by Daylight in the sense that it's a multiplayer horror game with a monster and survivors. But obviously Among Us is not a horror game, but sometimes it pretty much feels like it. Minecraft cave noises. If you ever played Minecraft as a kid and like heard the cave noise for the first time, you were like,
Or as
"Whoa!"
an adult.
Like what? Or as an adult, yeah, it's fair. It's
Yeah.
still spooky. But yeah, here's like a list of games to kind of like get you started on, uh, I don't know, horror and not horror, but things that have influence from that.
Yeah.
So yeah.
All right. So, um what comes to mind when you think about horror sounds? Um, we listed a few things up here. The floor is open if you wanna answer with your own stuff. But yeah, this just kind of these were some ideas that we had. Um, if anyone wants to chime in.
Um,
Lack of sound?
Lack of sound. Wow, that's something we're gonna talk about in
It
a bit, actually.
is.
But yes, good chat. Good shout. I think that's what I was trying to say. Yeah, good shout. Anybody else?
Feel free to leave it in chat as
Yeah,
well.
feel free
Yeah.
to do that. Uh, but yeah, a few of these things, like the thumping of the doors and all those, that one level where there's like a thin layer of water on the ground, in Amnesia: The Dark Descent, and then the splashing just gets louder and closer to you, and you can't see what's in the water. You can't see anything really. You just see that it's splashing really violently, and it's very dark. It's really terrifying. Um, so there's that. There's a bunch of like weird creatures like clickers, the flood, necromorphs from Dead Space, xenomorphs from Alien, and cannibals from the forest. All those kind of make weird, kind of gross, inhuman sounds. Um, a lot of zombie games, a lot of those could fit in that category as well. And even something like the clicking between the cameras in Five Nights at Freddy's, it can really I don't know, it comes to mind when you think of horror, and just because it feels kind of off, and we'll get into that later as well. Um, so yeah, this slide is basically just the importance of sound, and just how much it can impact your game experience. So this was taken from a Gama Sutra article, um, and basically it just shows that playing when two different test groups were playing Amnesia, they played for like a couple minutes, and as you can tell by both of these graphs, their physical responses while playing the game were significantly increased when they had audio, um, which measured here the heart rate and respiratory rate. Um, it makes sense for a horror game that when you hear spooky sounds, your heart rate is going to go up and you're going to be breathing faster, because you're getting spooked. So, um, yeah,
If you've ever tried to play, um, if you ever wanted to play a horror game without like getting spooked, a very easy way to do that is to play with no sound. Like, I think we've talked about before the importance of sound in games in general, but it's especially true for horror games because you have to build up such an atmosphere. And as soon as you take that away, you're like, yep, I'm click clacking on my keyboard and I'm looking at my monitor, and it takes you out of it.
which is one of those things we'll get into. I feel like we've been
True.
saying that every slide, which we probably have. That's fine.
Building up the anticipation.
Exactly. It's all about atmosphere.
Exactly. All right, so this is a big one. It's basically the meat of this presentation. Bunch of techniques that you can employ to make people feel spooked. So distorting familiar sounds. That's a big one. Everyone's familiar with it. Everyone's heard the out of tune and really like dissonant kind of piano in horror games, like where it just goes like brrr and plays like one of those. I'm not a piano, so it didn't make the right sound, but you know what I mean.
And, sorry, Game Sound Club does not provide pianos.
Verbally at least. Yeah.
Verbally, no verbal pianos. Sorry.
But yeah, everyone's heard that. Everyone's familiar with that lack of familiarity, and it really instills the sense of unease and discomfort by communicating through the audio that something ain't right here. So in tandem with distorting familiar sounds in that way, bending the pitch of sounds or music can make the player feel a lot more uncomfortable. And all of this contributes to what horror usually does with visuals, taking something familiar and messing with it to make people feel uncomfortable. Like there's a reason why Uncanny Valley exists. It's kind of just feeding off of
another quick
fears.
point to build on that is if you've ever heard the term ear bend in music, I think it's very like you hear it all the time when it comes to horror, where like something just like suddenly changes like key, or like suddenly changes pitch, and like a slow motion, like the Among Us like opening noise, like that, like that's like, oh shit, like something is wrong.
Something is awry. But yeah, in connection with that, making uncomfortable music through like weird, like a lot of use of dissonance and kind of weird chord voicings and different effects, all of that will just add to the discomfort of the player. Layering sounds to create a more pronounced impact. So you can layer sounds on top of each other in different parts of the audio spectrum to really help broaden the sound. And it adds a bit more impact to it and kind of enhances the personality of the sound, if that makes sense. And as long as the dominant sound is still the one that represents it best, like if you take a door creaking, for example, and you add like a stone grinding on another stone to just really emphasize, okay, this is a really heavy door, but that kind of overtakes the sound of the door opening, that won't feel right. So you gotta make sure that the door opening sound would be the dominant sound in this case. So you find the one that represents it best, keep it like in the realm of believability, which is among the most important aspects to delivering a spooky sound. Filter sweeps. There's something I didn't know about until like last week. But say you've got like a low ambient hum or something that just loops and plays for hella long time, like the entire duration of the level. That's gonna drive the player mental. And you can't just kind of fade the volume down either when it's been like 5 minutes, because like once the player is conscious of the constant incessant humming, it'll be super apparent when the volume just starts dropping off, and then they'll be like, that really took me out. Wow. So what do? Adding a filter sweep to the ambient and atmospheric tracks will help keep things more dynamic. And as we kind of discussed in the last session, variety and dynamic elements, like without a doubt, they will improve your soundscape. So filter sweeps, they keep the EQ changing in the track, and they keep things changing. They keep everything a bit more dynamic, and just add a bit more layers of complexity to your soundscape. Using music sparingly, like I forget who it was who said that.
Amnesia Boy.
Someone who said that. But one thing about horror is that it makes it really unique compared to other genres, is that the distinct lack of music and that sort of kind of empty nothingness that goes on with silence, or the tension of a held note just waiting for the resolution to build the atmosphere of not just tension but like unease almost, and discomfort. Yeah, all of that goes into how sparingly or how frequently music is used. Again, we can all think of that one part in a horror movie when everything goes silent, oh, okay, a jump scare's coming, and then it happens. So using that suspense from a lack of sound is, to be fair, it's a tried and true way to do it, but there's a reason why it's tried and true, because it works. It signals to the viewer, okay, something's wrong, everything's too quiet, and something's going to happen. So it's a good way to alert the player to that kind of thing.
And specifically in the realm of video games, mostly, we've all played we all play those horror games where everything's just like silent and all you can hear is like the crunching of your feet or like the creak of the door opening, and that kind of plays with you a little bit as well, because you kind of start thinking, oh, is there something around? Am I supposed to be on the lookout? And you start thinking you're making too much noise because all of these sounds that you're making are super loud compared to the silence that you're used to when you're like trying to move around. So yeah, the lack of music is very, very important and very impactful in these kinds of games.
Yeah, and it feeds into the fear of the unknown as well. So like take the original Resident Evil games for example. You walk up to a door, you click it or whatever, and then there's that like black, and then the door just opens and it goes, and then it shows the next area. So while that's happening, all you hear is the door creaking open, and you have no idea what's behind that door. So, and the lack of music really helps solidify that feeling you get of just something's weird. Keeping things grounded in reality sound wise, it can really help. Grounding the player in the world and kind of imbuing it with the sense of realism can and will increase the potential to really unnerve the player when they experience something or hear something out of the ordinary. Good example of this, bringing this game up again, Five Nights at Freddy's. Which the animatronics coming to life to kill you isn't exactly the most realistic thing, but grounding it with the sound design that reflects reality makes it a lot more immersive for the player. From, like I said before, the cameras clicking between, or the clicking of the cameras, like switching views, the hum of the fan on the desk that's always there, the sounds of the vents bending under the animatronic's weight. In I think that's FNAF 2, and just hearing the noises of them moving around in the night in their broken voice boxes. Like, all of that is close enough to what we would assume is the reality in that world. So therefore, grounding it in that reality and keeping it within that continuity, it really helps it feel a bit more distressing, to really give you the sense that they're always converging and surrounding you. And it makes it more relatable and understandable. So therefore, the discomfort of something not being quite right, that comes back again. And basing everything in reality just adds to that and makes it more impactful. Anthony, if you want to take away this next one, I need a sip
Yeah, sure.
of the drink.
So, every sound is sacred. This is kind of something that you should just do as a general practice anyway. But especially when it comes to horror, there's also this saying in music, when it comes to certain genres, every note is sacred. And you don't want to like be pushing all of these sounds all of the time and have your game go crazy. Like it's not going to help anybody. It's not going to like help what you're trying to push forward, and it's just going to overwhelm the player, and they're going to meet your game. But basically, what you want to do is you make sure that you have those ambient sounds. You make sure that you have like Daniel mentioned, like the grass like being crushed underneath your feet, and like the scary sounds when there are jump scares and all that. But you make sure that those sounds are high quality sounds, and those sounds are not like overwhelming the player. And there's a reason. There's like always a reason why it plays, not just, oh, we'll toss a sound onto that to make it juicy. No, you have to think about what is going on this particular part of my game. Why is this sound being placed there? And especially when it comes to horror games, you need to make sure that you're keeping the context aligned with whatever happens to be scary in the first place. And like Carter said, keeping things grounded in reality is really important, and that also goes along with sort of the mix of your game, where you don't want to have like those grinding stone sounds overpowering the opening door, but at the same time, like you have to basically question like, why am I adding this? Like what does this add to opening the door? Like how does this sound increase the weight of opening the door? Or like how does this sound reinforce that the player should be spooked? And yeah, every sound is sacred.
Yeah. And last point on here is ambience. With the lack of music, or sparing use of music, to kind of build the suspense and tension and all those other memes, building up that kind of atmosphere of dread. The perfect cherry on that horror ice cream cone, uh, that's ambient level sounds. So for the 400th time, I'm gonna say this: when you play a horror game, we've all experienced when you play a horror. You've probably gotten to a part where it's mostly just silence until you hear like something, whether it's a creak of floorboards in a creepy kind of house, or rattling around a space station, or like in Amnesia, how you hear the wind and the rain rustling outside, and the entire castle is kind of groaning against the weather. These noises break up the silence and really help to unnerve the player and keep them on their toes, which is really important to kind of building up that horror. Because keeping them on their toes makes them hyper aware, and being in that hyper aware state, they're easily impacted by visual and audio stimuli. So it's really good to have those kind of ambient sounds to just kind of warm up the player, get them ready to be scared, subconsciously. And it really makes it feel like around every corner lies something to spook them. Like in Amnesia, particularly, that game does it phenomenally. So yeah, building the atmosphere in a believable way also increases the immersion, hence leading to spookier spooks. All right, so overall, what makes the spookytisms more impactful? Because you're probably sensing a slight undercurrent to all of this, and that is the secret topic of this. This whole thing's been about immersion the whole time.
Whoa,
Whoa,
spooky.
um, but yeah, every single one of those, it can be applied to just immersing the player. Um, Obviously, we did have it in a horror direction, but it could be used in other ways, which we will get into. We were on such a roll, and then I said we'll get into it in the next slides again. All right. So, uh, just a bit of a groundwork. Why is immersive sound really important? It's obvious. Being more into the game and being more immersed increases the capability to be spooked. Like obviously, if you're in like a flow state, then yeah, something that catches your eye and doesn't feel right and then just suddenly chases after you, that's gonna freak you out. People notice things when they don't sound right. So it really pulls them out of the experience. Let's say like a sound isn't properly spatialized, like it's right in front of you, like directly, but you hear it more in the right ear or something like that. Um, Doing that kind of thing will take the player out of the experience and it will break the immersion, making it less of a scary experience. Or less of an engaging experience when applied to other games. Um, and yeah, once again, it helps bring players into the flow state and keeps them there, which is really important to making sure that they're enjoying the game and staying engaged with it. And immersive sound can dramatically improve the game. It can easily take a mediocre experience and make it amazing, or even better, it can take an already great experience and make it masterful and like masterpiece status. Uh, Hellblade,
Case in point, any Doom
yes,
game.
Doom. Doom is a fantastic example. Um, but I'm not using it here. I'm using a couple other games that I really love. Hellblade and the Metro games are great examples of this. Um, they've got really good gameplay. They've got solid narratives, especially Hellblade. Some of the best visuals I've ever seen in games. Um, but both of them also have sound design that is beyond phenomenal. Um, they're also games that have immersed me unlike any other, and that's definitely in no small part due to the brilliant use of the ambient soundscapes, the music that integrates itself perfectly with it, and the application of surround sound to truly immerse the player on a level that's unseen in most games before, particularly with Hellblade. Um, so using all of the good techniques, or just all the techniques that we talked about, and applying them in the right way for those contexts and those projects, they created some of the best sound design in games, I would say, period. Um, yeah, and Doom again is a fantastic example of this. Everything is mixed perfectly when the music is playing and you're playing the game, versus when you're playing it without the music. It is a significantly different experience, and it's not as good. Like, just simple as that, the music enhances Doom to another level. And now for a small little case study on Firewatch, which, it's not a horror game, so it's kind of proving that all of these things can be applied to any type of game to either imbue some spookiness into it or just to make the player feel more immersed in the story. and the game world. But in this case, it's a bit of both. So I'll let Antonio Banderas take it away. If he wants to.
Oh, he's gone.
Sorry, my dog barged in at the exact time.
Tell him I say hi.
Okay, I will. I don't know what happened, but I think I accidentally rolled onto his paw. I felt so bad. So okay, this is a review from my friend about Firewatch. So if you don't know anything about Firewatch, kind of spoiler alert, not really. So basically, the basic premise is that it's a story about a man who leaves his life behind due to the complications his wife has with dementia. So it's sort of like the basic story is that he goes to this park and becomes a ranger so that he can escape his life. And if I'm just going to read the review here, so far I'm loving this game, but man, is it spooky sometimes. And it has nothing to do with like horror or anything. That's not what it's trying to get across. So right off the bat, the game allows you to build your own twist on the narrative while slowly leading you towards the main character having a rough time as he decides to leave his life and become a ranger. And so basically what happens is in the first 10 minutes of the game, you are given like these prompts to help like edit your narrative so that you can kind of be put in the character's shoes. And as you go on, you basically like you're leading further and further to the fact that oh shit, like this character's wife has like early onset dementia, and then eventually you're put into the shoes of like okay, I'm leaving my life behind because like my wife has early onset dementia and I can't deal with it anymore. She like doesn't recognize me. It's terrible. So starting off with that premise is very powerful. And basically the first sort of time that you kind of spend in the area in Firewatch is like getting used to your environment, getting used to your responsibilities. This is your watchtower, this is where you sleep, and this is like a route that you're going to do for patrolling to make sure people aren't doing what they shouldn't be doing. So I'm just going to talk about like the very first spooky encounter, which is you are on your way back from your first day, and you encounter this guy. He's like pointing his flashlight at you, and you can't see him, and because it's nighttime and the flashlight's too bright. So you're like trying to basically track him down because he's on a path he shouldn't be on. It's dangerous. So as you're going along there, the person on the other side of the walkie-talkie is talking to you, and she's like, "Oh, I see you're back at your tower." But you're not actually back yet, so you're like, oh shit, and then there's like a drop in like the music and like the sound effects, like things just happen. And then you're running back to your tower to see like, oh, what's happened, right? And he like it turns out like he's broken into your watchtower, which again is where you sleep, by the way, and he's like messed around things, and you're like super scared. And like part of the reason why you're so scared is because you've been immersed for so long, you've been let along. This is something that could easily happen in real life. You're in the middle of nowhere and you basically are the police. You have no training, so you're like, oh my god, what am I going to do? On top of that, tension being built by the sounds and especially the voice acting is really important in this sequence of actions. So basically what happens is like there's just a lot of frantic conversation back and forth with the person on the other end, and it just pushes you to like a crazy point. And even the character himself like stays up all night drinking coffee because he's afraid to go to sleep. And these themes persist throughout the entire game. And this game is not meant to be like spooky from a narrative perspective at all, except for like, what is this mystery happening in the world? But yeah, this is a good example of how immersion is really important, and horror has its influences in lots of things, and how to apply that sort of sound design to something that is contextually not supposed to be horror. So yeah, that's that.
And that conclude the presentation Reno. Had some references here. It's a couple Gama Sutra articles and this book that I'm reading, because this book I'm reading is a very good book that I am reading. Yeah. Now discussion or question time? Anyone want to talk about spooky horror things? Or like really good uses of sound design or really good moments in a horror game that hit you?
Made a spooky song.
Was it Spooky Scary Skeletons?
No, I made it myself. During your thing.
Ah, nice.
It's actually pretty.
Hear it.
Listen to everything and just put it in there.
Hear it.
Alright. If I can actually. Hold on. Will it play if I shared? Oh wait, I can't share my screen, so I'll just put it in the chat. Should be
Yeah,
small
do
enough.
that.
Oh, yeah, toss it in workshop or voice chat text or something. Up to you, Doug.
Save. I didn't know a rock organ existed until now. That was
The
fun.
rock organ. That sounds fun.
On that note, if we are done, you are welcome to stay and we can just jam out to more Halloween music.
That
This
is true.
very true.
I'm actually gonna quickly go check on my dog again because he came back and he was okay, but I'm worried about him, so I'll be right back.
Of course.
And while he is doing that, I just want to quickly say, if you're not signed up for the GSC member role in the main game dev server, and you want to be, make sure you do that. Just helps with stuff. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, very, very, very eloquent. I know.
There we go, spooky song.
Nice.
Just me, or did the beginning sort of sound like it was like a spooky organ-esque like wedding thing?
Yeah, I don't know. I just thought it was just a little fun
Yeah, I dig it.
experiment.
That's cool.
I get
I like it.
very spooky vibes. I feel like someone's
Sounds
gonna.
like it should be something in Nightmare Before
Yeah.
Christmas.
Yeah, either that or
Yeah.
like a Dracula thing. Like, I want to suck your blood. Bam, bam, bam.
Am I the only one who? Oh,
What?
don't worry about it.
Alright. Alright.
Alright then.
All right.
Yeah. I'm going to stop the recording now, and we can just kind of vibe.
Yeah, you already know. I'm playing Monster Mash again.
And after that, what are you gonna play? Monster Mash again.
Monster Mash again.
And I'm gonna play Scream and Shout for 6 hours.
Black Eyed Peas. Nice.
Yeah.
There you go. It's time to bump out to
Alright,
this amazing Halloween
Alright, before
song.
this gets claimed, I'm gonna stop the video. Thank you everyone who's watching this later, and thanks you for everyone for coming.